let's stop on this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. So I'll start with some prayers and then we'll try to recite the verse and we'll discuss based on it. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Dharini Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. This is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, text 10. Chapter 4, text 10. So here, Krishna is describing how we can approach God through this world. So, I'll explain the meanings of the words and then we'll recite the words. Vita. Vita means to be free from. Krishna is talking about three kinds of mentalities or dispositions, emotional orientations that we try to free ourselves from. Raga, that is attachment. Then bhaya is fear. And krodha is anger. So vita, raga, bhaya, krodha. Man maya. Krishna says that fix your mind on me. But don't just fix your mind on me. Make me your shelter. Mam upashritaha. Man maya mam upashritaha. And in this way, bahavo, many people in the past, jnana tapasa, with the austerity of developing this knowledge. Jnana is knowledge, tapasa is austerity. By developing this knowledge, by internalizing this knowledge, bahavo jnana tapasa puta. Puta means they became purified. Many in the past, by understanding this, have become purified. Bahavo jnana tapasa. Puta madbhavam. Now bhava can either mean, bhava is emotion, but bhava also means nature in this context. So they have attained love for me, or they have attained me, my abode, my spiritual nature. Agataha, they have arrived at it. Puta madbhavam agataha. Vitaraga bhaya krodha. Manmaya mamupashritaha. Bahavo jnana tapasa. Puta madbhavam agataha. Vitaraga bhaya krodha. Manmaya mamupashritaha. Bahavo jnana tapasa. Puta madbhavam agataha. Let us try to recite it now collectively, not responsively. That means we all recite it together. Let's try to do it 3 times. Manmaya mamupashritaha. Bahavo jnana tapasa. Puta madbhavam agataha. Vitaraga bhaya krodha. So I'll explain this talk mainly in terms of three broad diagrams, and we'll dive deeper into each of these diagrams. Our topic is how to work as worship. So within that, I'll talk about three distinct things. First, I'll talk about the worldview. How do we see our work within a broader worldview? Then, I'll talk about spiritual growth, what it means. And then, within that understanding of the worldview of the spiritual growth, then we will re-envision work. How our work can itself become much more meaningful when seen within a broader perspective. So, throughout this talk, at any time if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll feel free to not answer them. Not really, I'll answer, but if the question will be answered later in the talk, or it's not directly relevant, I'm going to answer, but feel free to answer. Feel free to ask questions as such. So if you hear the word worldview, what do you think does it mean?
As perceived by the world?
As perceived by the world.
Popular opinion. Your view.
So as we view the world. So as we view the world, that's a literal meaning, worldview. So, any examples of worldviews? Like, what if you ask, you start a question in a party, so what is your worldview? That's not something we generally talk about.
We see sadness, we see anxiety, we see terrorism, we see poverty.
Yeah. So in our particular worldview, that can be understood through what we prioritize on. So when we meet someone, start talking with them, and they may talk about fashion. Maybe that's what is there. That fashion is their passion. You can say. Somebody else will talk about poverty. Somebody else will talk about terrorism. Somebody will talk about religious extremism. So in general, what we talk about, what we prioritize, that reveals our worldview. Any other aspects of worldview?
There are positive things also like progress, technology,
Relationships.
and economic growth.
Yes, so in the worldview, there are positives also. So yes, we can have technological, economic development.
What is beautiful?
There are beautiful things in the world.
Yeah.
There is
Happiness.
happiness, of course.
Joy.
So, sorry?
Joy.
So, within our worldview, in one sense, we could say these are the things we would like to view also more. We would like to focus on them, and we can look at them. So, anything else? Thank you. Anything else about worldview?
And
Nowadays there are so much of the relationship issues, commitment.
Okay. Relationship issues, too. Okay, so, it's interesting.
And there is a spirituality also.
Spirituality is also there.
It's very
So,
important.
yes, definitely. Relationships, spirituality.
Fascinating creation.
The fascinating part of creation, yes. Nowadays, you have something like curiosity channel you have, or some other channels, Discovery Channel or whatever. There are so many fascinating things. And we try to learn about
Climate change.
Climate change is the issue, yes. So we could say that there is a worldview where ecology is concerned, we're concerned about the ecology. So when we look at the worldview, there are certain things which we prioritize. And when we prioritize those things, what it means is that those things matter to us. So there are so many things in the world, we cannot possibly focus on everything. So we focus on some things more and some things less. So it's like our worldview underlies our view. View means what I see. That is guided overall by my worldview. So our worldview shapes our almost entire functioning in life to some extent. And in some ways you could say the worldview is also related with our philosophy of life. Now, many people may not say, what is your philosophy of life? Some people may not have a necessarily think about it, have a particular answer for that. But we all have. Philosophy, the word literally means, phili is love, so force is truth. It's a love of truth. What is that you consider the most important? What is it that is truly valuable? So, broadly speaking, all the various philosophies or worldviews that are there in the world, they can be put into 4 categories. Especially when you're talking about a spiritual context, that we have this world and there is another world. The other world, we can say. So other world may be heaven, Vaikuntha, kingdom of God. Different people may have different ideas. So now broadly, the worldviews can be classified in this world, it's real. Or it's unreal. The other world is real, or the other world is unreal. So we can have broadly 4 different worldviews. Now in these 4 quadrants, if we start clockwise from the right bottom, which do you think is the worldview that most people have today? This world is real. The other world? Unreal. Now, who has seen it? That kind of idea is there. So we could call this as the worldview of materialism. So materialism is matter is what matters. Now, while materialism is the prominent, almost predominant worldview today, and it has led to a lot of progress. If we believe this world is what is real, this world is what matters, then we'll work hard to improve it. And that's how we have technological progress, economic development, all those things are there, undoubtedly. At the same time, the world we live in is inherently unsatisfactory. It doesn't live up to our expectations. And that's why even people who have no interest in any kind of religion or spirituality, they look for something beyond this world. And how do we do that? That is through fiction. If we, 1,000 years down the line, if some archaeologist wanted to know what is the defining characteristic of this century, 21st century, possibly one of the most outstanding things would be movies. For some 3 hours of, Indian movies are 3 hours, Western movies are 1.5 to 2 hours probably. For just a few hours of enjoyment, millions and millions of dollars are spent. And I was in a university in America. I had a number of university programs. I was not even aware which university I was going to. I was going for a program, and when I was going there, I asked, so which is this university? And this is the American Institute of Illusion. That was the name of the university. So what it means is that this is where they train people to make movies. So now, many of the movies that are made, they flop. In fact, the last post-pandemic, there is a new word that has come up. You know, all of us have heard of this word blockbuster. So now there's a new word that has come as flopbuster. So a flopbuster is where you spend millions of dollars and you make it $500,000. So, or $250,000. So basically, why do movies flop? You can say there are many reasons. But the underlying reason is that the illusion is not good enough. We want, they call it escapist entertainment. And the actor's acting is not good, the plot is not realistic, if the scene choreography is not good, whatever, then we don't enjoy it. So the point is, you're spending so much money to go into an alternative reality. Now somebody said, I don't consider it real, just enjoying it. But if I have last 10 years I've been spending 7, 8, 9 months outside India trying to share the Bhagavad Gita in the West. So I spend a lot of time with younger people in the West. We have the Kumbh Mela coming up now. In the West, they have a Kumbh Mela. That is the Comic Cons. And they have people, young people, who come to the Star Wars fans, or you have Harry Potter fans, or you have whatever, all these iconic Marvel Universe and DCU, and they have these fans. And people put on those particular costumes and they take it all so seriously. Is it? So it's almost as if they are living in a different reality. So the point is, materialism itself, it doesn't satisfy the heart. And that's why we try to create another world. Now we may say argumentatively it's not, we don't think it very real. But people live in it as if they take it very seriously. So the point is that in the materialistic worldview, the Gita says this place is dukkhalaya. Now when it says dukkhalaya, distress. The distress can range from something being disappointing to something being devastating. Disappointing means what? My expectation was this much, but the reality is only this much. I thought, I would go to Disneyland and have a great time. I went there, a good time, but it is not all that great. So, when the reality does not live up to our expectations, that also causes some level of distress. Now, of course, it can be devastating. My expectation is this, and the reality turns out to be completely opposite. That is heartbreaking. So, both can happen. We seek a romantic relationship, and sometimes that person just turns out to be a betrayer or abuser or whatever. It's like a nightmare. But sometimes we may have a good relationship, but still it's not satisfying enough. That's why I say love is blind, marriage is an eye-opener. So now this is not to trivialize, it's just a fact of life that life does not live up to our expectations. And that's why people try to create an alternative kind of reality. So materialism, the problem with it is, this particular worldview, is that we want to escape from it because it is dissatisfying. And ultimately, it leads to distress. Death is there, and death takes everything away. So, Mrityu sarvaharishchaham, Gita says. So then we all work so hard, to gain some good grades in exam, to build our business, to build our reputation. And in one moment, everything can be taken away. Now, I spend a lot of time in LA. I have a close friend, some of you are aware, LA, in the whole area where the Hollywood celebrities are living. So their houses are just getting burnt. And thousands and thousands of acres. America is not so thickly populated. That's why the toll of life is very less. But the toll of the property is huge. So everything that we spend our life to build, it just can go off. So death can lead to a sense of total pointlessness. So materialism, matter is all that matters, but matter is temporary. So what happens after that? So Krishna, when I said, be free from three things. Now this worldview leads to raga. In the verse that we discussed, Vita raga bhaya krodha. So raga is desire. Desire is, I want to achieve this, and I want to achieve that, and I want to achieve that. So materialism leads to the worldview of desire. And the result of this, unfortunately, what happens is at the time of death, no matter how much we may achieve, the desire is frustrated. Because now, there could be another worldview. That some people, they think that, okay, we have rejected the idea of in a religion as a pre-scientific mythology. There's no such thing like that. But then this world itself, what does it really matter over here? Everything is temporary. There was an existentialist philosopher, Albert Camus, intelligent person, very intelligent person. But he led to this worldview that is called nihilism. So he said, existence is suffering, I'm paraphrasing, And the more you try to mitigate suffering or find pleasure, the more the suffering increases. Therefore, the only philosophical question worth asking is whether to commit suicide today or tomorrow. It's a very dark way to live. So, this is, okay, there's no other world and everything here is temporary. What is the point of it all? So this, Krishna says, is the worldview of Krodha. Krodha is not just anger. Anger is generally temporary, but it is frustration. Where frustration can last much more than anger. So this is the worldview of anger. In fact, you could say it goes beyond frustration. It goes to despair. It is, we'll come back to this particular mood will come back later, but this is the worldview where neither is this real nor is anything else real. Now, unfortunately, much of the youth in the West and to some extent in India is slowly, as the postmodern worldview is coming in, what is happening is a severe distrust of all institutions, whether it be government, whether it is medicines or big pharma, technology is big tech, and military is the military industrial complex. Now all of this, it's good to have some skepticism of these things. So sometimes the skepticism goes down to cynicism, where people just think that everything else is pointless, just destroy everything. Nothing has any value. In many ways, if nothing else, this will lead to depression. See, depression is caused not just circumstantially, there can be many causes of depression. And I don't want to trivialize that in any way. But ultimately, depression is caused by the idea that nothing really matters. Nothing I do matters. I myself don't matter. It's like a cycle downwards. Nothing matters, nothing I do matters, I myself don't matter. And then this ultimately depression is basically the triumph of despair over hope. If you all need something to live for, every day when you wake up, you have something to look forward to. But if the idea is nothing matters, there's nothing in this world, it's all temporary, everything that everyone achieves is just a strategy to gain power, everybody is just power hungry, and everybody who acts as good is simply waiting for an opportunity to do something bad and to exploit others, to abuse others. When somebody has that worldview, so it's very depressing. Now, there is a harsh reality. People can be manipulative, people can be exploitative. But at the same time, there is goodness in the world. There is goodness in people's hearts and there is goodness in the world. But when people start thinking there's nothing of value, so then nihilism is, among all the worldviews, this is the darkest. You have to get out of it. Nothing matters. That is not something anybody can live with.
So alienation is also part of this?
Which one?
Alienation. People
Yeah, alienation can sometimes be psychological. It need not be philosophical. Psychological means I just don't feel connected with anyone. I just feel I'm out of place. I don't belong here. And now that could be because, we are surrounded by people whose interests are different from ours. Or we have had some history of relationship issues and that's why people don't understand us, we don't understand others. So it could be addressed by changing the circumstances, maybe going to a different place, working on some different area. But when it becomes philosophical, it's that not only can I not connect here, but there's nowhere I'll be able to connect. That becomes a much more serious problem. So now, beyond this, there's the worldview that the other world is real and this world is false. Now this is the worldview of impersonalism. That ye jagat pura maya hai. All this is just false. And there is the other world, it is only real. Brahma Satya, Jagat Mithya. Now, that phrase can mean many things, but one way it is understood is that all of this is just false. So the view of the world becomes everything that is attractive in this world, that is just a temptation that will entangle us. Because it's all false, everything that looks good, everything that feels good, is a trap. And with this world view, the primary emotion that comes is why? Fear. Why? Because the whole world is a trap. Everything that seems real is actually going to entangle me. So some people may, I'm talking about this at a philosophical level. For many people this happens more at a psychological level. That's why Krishna is also talking about Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. These are not philosophies. They are the effect of philosophies. So some people, they have bad experience with relationships and they just become relationship addicts. I was in California, I was going for a talk and there was a car in front of me, the car had a bumper sticker. So the more I get to know people, the more I love my dog. So, the idea is people are just untrustworthy. I don't want to do anything with people. Pets can't substitute for human connections. Sometimes when wounded, then yes, having pets can help a person. It's definitely better than getting into drugs or sinking into depression, caring for some other living being. Ultimately, not relationships. So, bhaya is fear. Oh, nothing is real. There's some reality somewhere else, but this is not real. Now, in many ways, one of the mysteries of history is that India was repeatedly conquered by many, many invaders. And quite frequently, at least in the initial years, when any invader came, the invading army was always smaller than the defending army. After they started ruling, their army became bigger because they recruited local people. The invading army was always small and repeatedly they were defeated. But there are many circumstantial causes for that. There was disunity among Indian rulers and all that. But one underlying cause is that in the medieval times, India started gravitating towards this world view. That this world doesn't matter. So who this person rules or that person rules, what difference does it make? So a sort of apathy toward the world started coming up. And this is dangerous. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna does not support this idea that this world is false. How do we know that? Because just 2 verses before this is the verse about avatar. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam dharmasya tadhatmanam srujamyaham paritrāṇāya sadhūnām vināṣāya ca duṣkritāṃ dharma samsthāpanārthāya sambhavāmi yuge yuge. So Krishna says sambhavāmi. I appear here again and again. So Krishna considers this world so important that when things go wrong here, he comes to fix things. So if this world is unreal, then the more messy the illusion, the better it is. People want to come out of it. But Krishna doesn't put it that way. He considers order in this world important. So now, what Krishna is saying, ultimately, if we want to live harmoniously, holistically, these 3 worldviews and their psychological consequences, we need to go beyond them. Be the Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. And the Gita's worldview, which you can call as devotionalism or personalism. That is, this world is real and there is another world also, which is real. So this world matters. So we are all individuals. God is also an individual. And we are persons. So this worldview is the teaching of the Gita. This world is real and the other world is also real. And now this is somewhat complicated. I won't go into all these worldviews. Later if you have questions, we can discuss them. But I wanted to give this as a background to understand this whole idea of work as worship. That when we do our work, with what understanding, how do we function? So the background is, the Gita says this world is real. But there is also another world that is real. There is a higher reality. So any questions about this particular discussion of worldviews?
You want more on this world?
This worldview. Of course, we'll talk about it, yeah.
No lines to cut to write.
Thank God, Prabhuji, this world is real. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's
We must celebrate life.
Yeah, I will talk about that, what it is. Yeah.
When despair is bigger than hope, because it leads to depression. What's vice versa? When hope is bigger than despair, then what happens?
I think that's the point of living.
That's what.
Otherwise we cannot live. There has to be something we look forward to. See,
How do you define one word? Which is the takeaway? Like you said, depression, when despair is bigger than hope.
So when hope is bigger than despair, I would say meaning.
Meaning.
There's something meaningful that I have to look forward to. So I talk a little bit about the difference between meaning and pleasure later. But many people think pleasure is the purpose of life. But there are times when there may be no pleasure in our life. But meaning is something we can always cultivate.
Right.
So now, thank you. Any other points or comments?
Just had a fear. I can still feel that this world is real and have fear, and then it would not go into that.
So see, fear is a fact of life, and fear is not a bad fact actually. See, fear is what is a natural psychological alert for danger. It is because of fear we avoid danger and we protect ourselves. So fear itself is not a bad thing. But here what I'm talking about is, look, there are dangers in the world and we should be afraid. Say, there are 20-story skyscraper and it's an open veranda and a child is peeking down that. And the mother says, move away from there. And the child says, I'm not afraid. The mother says, that's why I'm afraid now. Isn't it? So, lack of fear can be highly problematic. When there is danger and there is no fear, that is not fearlessness, that is recklessness. Now, when you talk about courage, so fear is itself not a bad thing. Fear can become a bad thing when the danger is imagined. There is no danger and we imagine danger.
Uncertain fears?
Yeah, just thinking things, this may go wrong, this may go wrong, this may go wrong. Or fear is exaggerated. Somebody was bitten by a dog in the childhood, and now they see a dog. It's a tiny poodle, very sweet and gentle. But this dog will bite me. So fear can become a problem, but fear itself is not a problem. And we talk about courage. Courage is not so much the absence of fear as it is the presence of a purpose bigger than fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. I have a friend in the military. He is in a significantly big position. So he's telling me that the soldiers who have no fear, we as the authorities, those are the soldiers that we fear. Because they will not listen to strategy. They just rush into danger. I'm not afraid. Now, there has to be a healthy fear of death. So courage is actually the presence of a purpose bigger than fear. Like everyone else, soldiers are also afraid of death. But the love for the country is big enough that I'm ready to take this danger. So,
In a view where
so just let me complete this one. So what I'm talking about is not circumstantial fear. There are certain circumstances, and in those fear may be a healthy response. But what I'm talking about is the existential fear, where I'm afraid of all of existence. That is pathological. So fear can be circumstantial because there is danger, but there is existential fear. That my existence itself is the whole existence is itself pointless. Existence itself is dangerous. Existence itself is something I'm scared of. So that is the kind of fear that the Gita is talking about over here. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. So now, I said first I talk about worldviews, then I talk about spirituality and spiritual growth. So, what does that mean? So, generally speaking, spiritual growth can be understood through this one diagram. So, there is this, you could see this world, and there is the other world. So, the other world could be God, whatever is there in the other world. So, initially for us, this world is very big. And the other world, whatever it is, it's not very big, it's small. When I started my spiritual journey about 30 years ago, I started sharing it with all my relatives. So I called my uncle and talked with him. My uncle said, yeah, I believe in God. He's happy there, I'm happy here. So the other world doesn't seem very relevant. It may be there, but it's not very relevant. So now, this other world, before we go too much into the other world, I'd like to put it a little more simply and accessibly. That other world, we don't see it externally, we don't perceive with our senses. But it is the world which we access through our thoughts, through our consciousness. So we could put it, spirituality is more about our inner world. Because at our core, the Gita says we are spiritual beings. So we could say, for people, the outer world, which is the world of things, that's very big. Now the inner world is the world of primary thoughts. From thoughts, our desires grow, our emotions come. Inner world of thoughts is not very big. Most people focus, I improve my things in life. I get a bigger house, I get a better car, I get a bigger position, then I'll be happy. So initially, when I say bigger and smaller, what I mean is in terms of it being a source of happiness for me. So I think that the outer world and the gains in the outer world will give me far greater happiness. And the inner world of our thoughts, which are ultimately connected with our spiritual reality as core beings, as core spiritual beings, that is not very important. But as we grow spiritually, what we start understanding is the outer world doesn't matter so much. It is the inner world. The things I have are important, but the thoughts I have are even more important. So, somebody, say for example, why is this true over here? If we consider, I may have a huge house, and that's good. But if my thoughts are filled with greed, then what I will see is somebody else has a bigger house than me. And those thoughts will keep me dissatisfied. They may even keep me impoverished. I feel the greedy will always be needy.
Happiness becomes competitive.
Oh, yes. Not only competitive, it's destructively competitive. See, competition is not a bad thing. Competition can help all of us to grow.
Yes.
But it is, if the competitiveness becomes just a defining reality, where I have more than I rising above you, I want to pull you below me, then it becomes highly destructive. Yeah. So now, here.
How do you know what's the limit of that competition? So how do you decide that?
Okay. It's a good
Somebody may
point.
say, 1 crore is enough. Somebody may say 100 crore is also not enough. So I'm saying, what's that? How do you determine that?
Yeah, see, the point is that if one is pursuing things, there is no limit to that. Does that mean you should not pursue? No, that's not the point I mean. That it is not so easy to put a limit that you pursue only this much. What is more important is that in life, our happiness, generally, we think it comes from what we have. And it's important, no doubt. But over a period of time, we start realizing our happiness is much more by what we do with what we have. What we do with what we have. I may have a big home, but if inside my home I have a very cold relationship with everyone. I build a palatial home, but I have not invested time to have good relationships. Then that big home will only give me a lot of space in which to feel lonely and unhappy. So what we have is important, but what we do with what we have is even more important. So rather than trying to say put a limit to your ambition, it's like focus more on the direction of the ambition. What am I trying to do with it? So this is what we have is possession. Now, what we do with what we have, that's more a matter of contribution. So contribution means how am I using what I have? There's an American comedian, he said that my wife and I, we enter into our house through different doors. We live in different rooms, we eat at different kitchens, we watch different TVs, we drive different cars. We are doing everything possible to keep our marriage together. There's no marriage at all over there. So the thing is that getting all those things is good. But what are we doing with what we have? So over a period of time, we'll find, that's why I talk about pleasure and meaning. See, what we have, that is often the source of pleasure for us. But what we do with what we have is the source of meaning for us. If I'm using something, say it is, I have money, I'm using it to take care of my family. I'm taking it to serve the community. I'm trying to give it back in some way. Now, we may say if I don't have enough, I cannot even do much with what I have. That is also true. But rather than focusing on restraining one's ambition, it's more what is the purpose of what I'm trying to do. When that becomes the focus, then we'll find that our resources will also aid in bringing us happiness. So, if somebody starts a charity, then I have wealth and I'm using it to feed some poor children, then that gives fulfillment, that gives a sense of satisfaction. So there's what I have and what I do with what I have. So, connected with this itself, if you consider, see, initially, our idea is the thoughts are the means. Okay, I think about this, I think about that, and I get that thing. So the inner world is primarily the means to the outer world. But as we grow, we experience life, we start understanding that actually the whole point of the outer engagement is to improve the inner quality. Things and thoughts. See, we are realizing this more and more in today's world with the increase of mental health problems. I often bring people from the West to India on a yoga students on a tour of India. So, the first thing that strikes them is the poverty. Especially they go to any holy place, there's a lot of terrible poverty. But then, afterwards, many of them, they say, these people are poor, but they don't seem to be bitter and hateful. They are, not that we want them to stay in poverty forever, but they're relatively, they're peaceful. Your kids in a slum are playing and they're having, I can't say a great time, but they're not completely wretched and miserable as it seems initially. So what has happened is, if you could say in the West and say in the East or in India, I don't want to stereotype either the West or India, because both of these are very big places. But as they are essentialized in our imagination, in the West, people are comfortably unhappy. What do I mean? At the level of things. We have lots of great things and that's why we're comfortable. But at the level of thoughts, there is depression, there is loneliness, there is addiction, there is stress. On the other hand, in India, there are many people who seem to be uncomfortably peaceful. That people may be uncomfortable, but they are peaceful. Ideally speaking, we should have both. We can have comforts at the physical level, but we also want to be peaceful, we want to be happy. So, spiritual growth means that we start understanding that things matter, but our thoughts matter even more. So mental health problems are an indication that people have a lot of good things, but still the thoughts seem to become like enemies. That could be depression, that could be craving, that could be addiction, that could be stress, that could be anxiety. But the thoughts have become enemies. So the quality of the things that I have matters, but the quality of thoughts I have matters even more. So spiritual growth, we go back to this, the way I engage with things should actually enrich the quality of my thoughts. If I'm engaging with things and say, okay, I'm feeling bored, I watch a movie. And in the movie there is some humor, there is some action, there is this or that. At the end of the movie, if I'm filled with anger or greater craving, more greed, more sexual desire, then that is not really going to make me feel peaceful. It's only going to make me more agitated. So the idea of spiritual growth is that our thoughts matter as much as, if not more than our things. And when people practice meditation, we are trying to calm our thoughts. We are trying to give some time, some focus to getting our inner world in order. So now, when we want to meditate, that doesn't mean we don't care for outer things. You understand, this is also important. So there are thoughts and there are things. And our thoughts matter just as much, if not more than things. So somebody might be sitting in an air-conditioned room, but if somebody has insulted them, they are feeling enraged by that. They might be sitting in AC 5-star hotel and eating food. That food will taste like garbage to them. This is not being able to enjoy, not being able to taste it. So when I see this particular point, this will take me to the last point of work and worship. See, when the world is big for us, what it means is the world will always have dualities. Kabhi khushi, kabhi gum. But when the world is what matters to us, then these dualities get escalated by our mind. And then every good thing starts jumping high up, and every bad thing just go down. This is where sometimes one form of depression is manic depression. Manic depressive people, when they're in the manic phase, they have so much energy, they can move the whole world. And then they go into the depressive phase, and it seems the whole world can't move them out of their bed. Just want to stay there under a blanket. So what is happening is the dualities can shake us a lot. This is how we have mood swings. One day, if I go to my office, I go to work, and I get some success, somebody appreciates, hey, this is such a great job, I love my job. And the next day, we get some feedback. And what a terrible job. I hate this job. And nowadays, it can become like a relationship with the relationships also. One day, I love you, I can't live without you. The next day, I hate you, I can't live with you. So, these dualities, if the world is very big for us, then the world's dualities also become very, very big. Small things start becoming, I'm not saying small in the sense of they don't matter, but they will pass. They don't have to be taken so seriously. When the world is very big for us, ups and downs of the world keep our thoughts in a state of stormy turbulence, going way up, going way down. And this is where, if the world alone is our reality, or the world is the biggest reality, then thoughts often grow to emotions. And one big danger is that our emotions, they are themselves reversible. Our emotions, I feel one way today and tomorrow I may feel a completely different way. Emotions are reversible, but if we do not have something bigger to hold on to beyond our emotions, then those emotions can impel us to actions, and those actions may be irreversible. So, reversible emotions should never become the basis of irreversible actions. Probably the most tragic manifestation of this is when somebody takes their own life. No matter how bad somebody may feel, things pass. But when the world is what matters for us, or world is what mostly matters for us, entirely matters for us, then something goes up and down in the world, then the emotion resulting from that can impel us to irreversible actions. That's how, when some problem comes in a relationship, people just end the relationship. Some issue comes up, just get rid of the whole thing. So, this world becoming too big and there not being some other bigger reality, that makes us very vulnerable. Now, the world is like an ocean, and there will be waves, the waves of dualities. So, but when the waves come, we cannot ever stop the waves. But we can avoid being swept away by the waves. And that is where our spirituality comes in. So these are the waves, the dualities will keep coming. So if I am here, with the waves, I'll keep going up and down. But if I have an anchor that I can hold on, then that anchor will keep me steady. So this anchor is our spirituality. So it could be a meditation, prayer, whatever our spiritual practices are, they anchor our thoughts in some unchanging reality. And to the extent we are situated in unchanging reality, to that extent, we will be able to look at this world with a greater level of stability. So the ultimate spiritual reality, the ultimate anchor is God. So when we connect with God through prayer, through meditation, then that gives a stable place for our thoughts to rest in. Bhajahure mana Shri Nandanandana Abhaya Charana Ravindare. When this anchor is there for us, we'll find that whereas previously the dualities were leading to a lot of problems, two things happen. The world itself becomes small for us, then the world's duality also then becomes smaller for us. And we can stay more stable. In the West, one philosophy that has become increasingly popular is Stoicism. And their book says the Daily Stoic. Where the idea is how to not get carried away by our emotions. Now, actually, Stoicism is more a psychological approach than a whole worldview, because it really doesn't really explain an entire worldview. It says what is the most pragmatic way to function. So being steady is a strength, but the problem. So now I'll come back to the conclusion of what the topic was: work as worship. See, one problem with trying to be steady. See, if I am here and the world is small for me, the world is small for me, and the spiritual reality, which ultimately centers on God, is big for me. If the world becomes small, but if from the world I want pleasure, then the pleasure also becomes small. If I become steady, then where do I get the pleasure? It's not that, say, if I'm a cricket fan, India wins the cricket match, I celebrate and enjoy. and India loses, I'm detached from it. No, if the emotions are invested in it, it will go both ways. So what will be our source of happiness? That is where our spirituality comes in. Our spirituality, this connection, when the world becomes small, we become externally peaceful. But without spiritual connection, we become internally joyful. Externally or materially peaceful, internally or spiritually joyful. And with this attitude, when we work, now how do we become joyful? Because that connection with God, God is like an ocean of happiness. When we connect with Him, Sabha Sukha Sadhara Sarva Guna Agar. When we connect with Him, we start experiencing a sublime satisfaction that goes beyond material description, even verbal description. It's something that has to be experienced. And when this happens, we will work, but we won't work with a sense of neediness. Like the work, people have to recognize what I'm doing. And if people don't recognize, they just feel so irritated, so dissatisfied. So, the last image about work as worship, I'll draw that and conclude this. This is God. The God is known in different traditions in different ways. In the Bhagavad Gita is known by the name Krishna. So this is God. We are here and the world is here. So now, normally speaking, what we do is, we have some work in the world and we try to get some reward from the world. The reward could be money, the reward could be respect, the reward could be fame, whatever it is. Now the problem with this particular is that somehow or the other, the reward never feels enough. That no matter how much I do, the world does not value me enough, the world does not care for me enough. The world's reward doesn't feel enough. And eventually the world's reward is going to stop. We are all going to grow old, we are going to get diseased. So the Gita uses a bigger worldview. The bigger worldview is this is always unsatisfactory. No matter how much wealth I get, how much fame I get, it's just not enough. One of my close friends has become a big celebrity on Instagram. He's got almost 7-8 million followers right now. Insta is not that big, but he's barely big. He gets millions and millions of followers, but very big. So he's telling me that actually, when I got to about 5 million, I was so happy. But then my focus becomes, if I post something and somebody else gets more views. And then it just becomes endless. So if I have 5 million followers, I look at those who are 10 million. Those who are 10 million, they look at 15 million. Just initially I was just focusing on trying to produce content that would go viral. It says now I am focusing on content that is valuable, that I feel is adding value to people's life. Sometimes it gets good views, sometimes it doesn't get good views. But the whole point is, like recognition, the world's recognition is never going to be enough for us. So the Gita says, the same worldview if you take, that we are a part of something bigger. So what we do is not just meant for the world. And what we have has also not come from the world. So what we have is God's gift to us. And what we do with what we have, that is our gift to God. And when we complete this cycle, when our focus is not just on the world, then we will find that connection with God through the mood of seva. It may be my job, but with my job, I want to bring value to people's life. With the money that I get, I want to bring value for others. It's what I have. That is a blessing from God. And we all would like to be more blessed. But what we do with what we have, that is the more important thing. The Gita has spoken to Arjuna, Arjuna was a great archer. He was one of the world's greatest archers. And he was in the royal family. He had positions. So for him this world was real and he achieved great things in the world. But for him, he was also a devotee. His eyes, his heart was fixed on the Lord. And thus, although there were many storms in his life, somebody was born in the royalty was suddenly exiled. His brother was attempted to be killed. His whole family was attempted to be burned alive. But he weathered all those storms. He never became bitter. That's because he had that anchor of Krishna. So for us, when we say work as worship, that means that we do our work diligently. But जो कर्म ही पूजा है बोलते हैं इसमें क्या है? The problem with that idea is that our eyes are focused only on the work and the world in which we are doing the work. And then that will never satisfy our heart. And that work has to be directed for higher worlds. So when I understand what I have been given is a blessing from God, a gift from God. And we have been given blessings so that we can become blessings. We can share our blessings with others and we can become blessings for others. And this complete cycle is what will give us fulfillment in our life. This is what will make our thoughts enriched. And this is what the Gita concludes for Arjuna. Arjuna is a warrior, but by the end of the Gita, Arjuna has been given a higher vision of what he is doing and why he is doing. In that vision, when he fights, he is, by the end of the Gita, he becomes fully confident, fully composed. And the Gita has the power to do that for each one of us. So I'll summarize what I discussed. 3 main points. We talked about how to work as worship. Do that. First, I talked about the worldviews. Our worldview defines what matters for us. So I talked about these 4 worldviews. This world is real, and the other world is real. And this world is false, and the other world is false. Does anyone remember the names of the 4 worldviews? This world real, other world false? Materialism. And this leads to desire. Rag. And the problem with that is this: it is disappointing, that it is never lives up to our expectations, and sometimes at the end it can become devastating when death comes and takes everything away. Now, what is neither world is real? That is, the word is nihilism. And this leads to frustration, even despair. Despair, depression. True. The other world is real, this world is false. Impersonal. So what Krishna says, Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. This is Bhaya, this is fear. Fear even to the point of dread. It's existential fear, not just psychological, not circumstantial fear. And the last is personalism, devotionalism. This is the worldview that leads to devotion.
Meaningful.
So it's a desire, despair, dread, and devotion. Sorry, correct. Could you notice that? Actually, this world real and the other world real. And the opposite here will be false and false. So then, when we say both worlds are real, what does that mean practically? We talk about spiritual growth. What it means is, initially, for us, the outer world is real and the inner world really doesn't matter so much. So things matter a lot, thoughts don't matter much. But as we grow spiritually, we start understanding that the quality of my thoughts is highly important.
The way we engage with the things improve the quality.
Yes, the way we engage with things. So thoughts matter much more than things. Otherwise, at this point, even if it's what we have, that is our possessions, associated with our thoughts, that can give us comfort. But In spite of comfort, we can be comfortably unhappy. That's the situation because our thoughts are impoverished. Our thoughts are somehow they are not working properly with us or for us. So we discuss what we have is important, but what we do with what we have, that is even more important. And that's where we came to the point of last part of work as worship. So how do we envision our work? Somebody can say my work is to increase my possessions. I want to get more and more and more. And that's natural, we all want more things. But that, if our idea is I want to increase my possessions, it's like I give and I get. This problem is this is never enough. So just not satisfy us. So instead we focus on increasing our contribution. What am I doing with what I have? And in this vision, I see that what I have is God's gift to me. And what I do with what I have, that is my gift to God. So the important point is, here we don't turn away from God. We use our work in this world, but we use it in a mood of service, in a mood of contribution. And this will lead, this holistic worldview, this will lead to the enrichment of thoughts. The enrichment of thoughts comes because it is not the world that is most important for us. The dualities of life will be there, but through our spirituality, we have got the anchor for ourselves. The spiritual anchor will ensure that we will be internally joyful and we will be externally peaceful. That's how we can have the most meaningful life for ourselves. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So, are there any questions, comments?
So, Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Last thing you mentioned is if you align yourself to gifting to God. But the way current employment in our jobs, it is like how you give to your employer and how you serve your employer. So how do you align the two?
No, I don't think that we have to see the current employer as completely disconnected from God. See, the word dharma, if I belong here, so the idea is that we all belong to some higher unit. Say for example, right now, you come for this talk. So now, I have come to do the talk, you have come to hear the talk. So we are all trying to we are belonging to this unit. If you come for a spiritual talk, and I start speaking politically inflammatory stuff, I didn't come here for this. So I have to belong here in a particular way. If you are coming here, you're sitting here, and say someone turns their chair on the backside, you're sitting that way. That's not a harmonious way to belong. So basically from every larger unit, we take something and we do something. And this is essentially dharma. Dharma means harmonious belonging. The word dharma has many different meanings, but one of the meanings is harmonious belonging. So if I am driving on the road, then I am becoming a part of the road transport system. And the way I belong harmoniously is by following the rules of the road transport. So we all belong to many larger units. We belong to a family, we belong to a community, we belong to a profession. So there are many such units that we belong to. And the ultimate unit that we belong to is God. So now God is not only the ultimate unit, God is also the unit that sustains all other units. It is God who sustains our families, our parents. For a child, one of the most selfless acts that sustain the child now is the mother feeding the baby with breast milk. It's definitely the mother's love. But at the same time, the mother does not do anything special to manufacture milk in her breasts. The same God who sent a child through her womb into the world is also sending milk in her breasts. So, belonging to the various larger units, that should not be seen as disharmonious with belonging to God. त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव. So the prayer is, you are my mother, you are my father, you are my friend, you are my sibling, you are my wealth, you are my wisdom, you, O Lord, are everything, are my everything. What this means is that there are various circles you belong to and we sustain those circles. So if we are working in a company, then we are getting something from there, we have to do something there. But we see that I have been placed in this particular circle also by a higher arrangement. And how can I harmoniously belong here? Now there is a state of renunciation where somebody decides I won't belong to any of the other units, I want to belong only to God. Now that is a state which may be chosen by some people at some stage in their life. But even renunciates have to belong to the community of renunciates in some ways. So nobody can completely focus only on that ultimate state. So each one of us, the Gita talks about Loka Sangraha. Loka Sangraha means maintaining the worlds. So each one of us has to play our part in maintaining the world by belonging harmoniously to the larger units that we belong to. So yes, we do our work properly, we do it diligently. We see that, okay, this particular place that I have been belonged, the abilities that I am given, they are given by God. The facilities I have are given by God. And we try to work. And if suppose the employer is too demanding, we feel this is not the place I want to belong to, then we may shift that. So these other units that we belong to, they are adjustable to some extent. But if we are belonging to a particular unit, we need to belong harmoniously. We definitely do our part. Our devotion should not become our excuse for being irresponsible or negligent in the larger units that we belong to. Thank you. Yes, please.
When you were discussing about the difference between the West and the East, then most people give this analogy and they say that sometimes bad experiences in some people's lives make them more wiser and knowledgeable and more peaceful. So sometimes they say that the harder your life is, then you become more knowledgeable. So that's why you need to get out of that comfort zone and you do things. So how can we understand?
Okay, so bad experiences make us wiser. Yes, but it is two different things over here. One is that we see a positive in a negative. The other is we seek the negative. Nobody seeks the negative. Somebody may say that, life is filled with duality, sometimes good, sometimes bad. That is true. But is that a desirable fact of life or unavoidable fact of life? If it is a desirable fact, then we say, last 10 years, my company is making profit. I need some duality. So, I deliberately make some losses. Nobody seeks that. So, yes, the point is, through distress also we can learn. And distress is an unavoidable fact of life. So, we can see through distress what is it that I can learn and grow. But that does not mean we artificially create distress so that we can learn. Because there is a certain level of stability required also to contemplate higher truths of life. And it is through both distress and happiness, we can actually grow. Through distress, we can learn certain things. In happiness, we can learn certain things. The point is to focus on learning and growing. But it is not that distress alone will help us learn. Then why not have distress all the time? Nobody wants that, isn't it? Thank you. Yes, please.
My question is a little long, so I'll try to phrase it. What we say that what we have is important, but the direction we provide is more important.
Yes.
Then, if we say what we have is important, and then we say we can get that if we have ambition, right? You also mentioned like one example, they said that it is someone who has 5 million views, and someone who can for 10 million views, and someone have 10, then you said 15 million views. That bring unhappiness because you always keep on desiring for more. And hence my question is, if someone looks for the growth, to have that growth, ambition is important, right?
Yeah.
If I don't have ambition, I'll not get the growth. So take the example, if someone wants to become number one in the seats, right, in the world, he have to have that vision, right?
Yeah, sir, definitely.
If that person doesn't have that vision, that person can't achieve. But then you are getting towards having desire, right? You want to have more. So take example in our public life, say Mukesh Ambani is number one in the States. What he wants to achieve now, he has achieved what he wants to achieve, but he wants to achieve that, okay, now I want to become number one, right, in the world. So what he have, he's not happy with this, right? Means if I assume this. But if I want to achieve something, is that wrong? So that is one question. The second question is again then linking it with Gita, means we say that, okay, what we have, we really need to link it back to the God. So that is, we are getting to bhakti mark, right? We are getting into the spiritual mark. So is it then the karma mark is wrong? Means if I am saying that, okay, what I am doing is important, then is that root wrong? So I really,
Yeah, I got the question. Yes.
really
Thank you. It's a very thoughtful question. So you can sit comfortably, please. Thank you. Now, no, ambition is not wrong at all. The Gita is a dharma aviruddho bhukteshu kamosmi bharatakshava. Kama can refer to specific sexual desire, it can refer in general to desire, ambition. Dharma can refer to ethics. So ambition that doesn't go against ethics, that Krishna says, I am that ambition. Now all the good things that have happened in the world, that is out of ambition. Arjuna became a great archer. He had an ambition. So there are great works of poetry, there are great works of architecture, great products of technology. All of them came through ambition. So ambition itself is not a problem. The problem comes when our possessions or our achievements, they become our identity, or rather our sole identity. See, for example, our net worth becomes our self-worth. When that will certainly be a part of our identity. But when that becomes my identity, then the problem is that may go up and down. And when it goes up and down, then I also go up and down. So our identity, our identity can either be based on our possessions or it can be based on our purpose. So in the Vedic text, there are 4 purusharthas. There is dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So dharma basically means virtue. Dharma has many different meanings. And earlier talked about harmonious belonging. Virtue is a way to belong harmoniously. That means if I'm a student, I develop the virtue of studying, of disciplining myself. So then artha refers to resources. It can refer to wealth, but in general resources. Now from artha we get desire fulfillment. We fulfill our desires. But beyond that, we transcend our desires. Desire transcending means what? See, mostly we think that fulfilling desires, that will lead to fulfillment of heart. That fulfilling my desires, getting this kind of house or getting number 1 status over here, that will fulfill my heart. But after some time we realize this does not happen. I can fulfill this desire, I can fulfill that desire, I can fulfill that desire. but that doesn't lead to fulfillment of heart. Now, this doesn't mean transcending all desires. Some desires, I'm not that concerned whether I am the wealthiest person or the top 10 or top 50. That's not the most important thing. It's not unimportant, but those desires and fulfilling those desires doesn't become that important. So now, the thing is, our artha can be used for paramartha. Paramartha is paramartha, the supreme meaning. Or artha can become the cause of anartha. Anartha means that which is not really of value, we start thinking it to be of great value. Say somebody is an alcoholic. And what is happening? Okay, drinking gives some temporary high, but it's not that important. But that becomes extremely important. When something which does not have much artha, much value, much meaning becomes very important, that is the essence of anartha. So the point is not ambition being bad. It is when ambition becomes our sole identity that we will all face loss in our life. But how we process that loss? Say somebody, I face loss. Now I may think I have lost. Okay, I was number one in tennis, now I'm not number one in tennis. I lost. Another maybe I am lost. Somebody invests themselves hugely in a particular business, and then that doesn't work. What am I going to do? That's much more disorienting if I feel I am lost. But the most damaging is I am a loser. When somebody starts thinking like this, they just can't function in life. So when our ambition becomes our identity, then our capacity to face life's ups and downs becomes much lesser. So the problem is not the ambition, the problem is equating our identity with that particular ambition. Even top sports players, at the end of the day, say a cricket match is a cricket match. And a cricketer, for them, cricket is a job. That's their job. They have their life beyond it. And everybody, if we tie our identity to a particular desire, that is subject us to a lot of instability. And that's why there are sometimes people who are very high performing individuals, but they're also very unstable emotionally. Because they're not well rounded. They're not holistic. So ambition is not the problem. It is, growth is just natural. I'm giving multiple examples because this is just an important point. See, we all were unicellular organisms. One time your mother's womb. Now there are billions of cells. So growth is natural, it's desirable. However, cancer is also growth. But that is a growth that is disproportionate and destructive. One part grows and destroys everything around it. So we want growth, ambition we want it. But when the ambition becomes destructive to everything else in our life, then that's cancerous. So ambition destroys our ethics, ambition destroys our relationships, ambition destroys our peace of mind. Then our mental stability, then that's very unhealthy. So having ambition is fair enough, but our growth should be proportionate.
Balanced.
So we want to belong holistically. Otherwise, people are professionally successful and personally failures. That's not very helpful. So that was the one part of the answer. What you said, you had a second part about it?
What I was saying, this philosophy
Okay,
somehow
it's
links
bhakti.
back to
Bhakti, yeah.
Bhakti Marg.
So, see, karma, these words also karma, jnana, bhakti, they have many different meanings. And we will go into a whole philosophical class about that. But the point is, karma can mean action. And bhakti can mean devotion. So, but these words have many different meanings. Like when you say the law of karma, there karma doesn't mean action. It refers to the whole principle of action reaction which you're talking about. So, in bhakti, in many ways, bhakti and karma, they are not all that separated. Karma, when we follow the path of karma, we are doing action. In bhakti, we are doing action also. But we are doing action for a higher purpose. For the purpose of serving the divine. So it's not that karma marga has to be given up for bhakti marga. This karma marga is adopted but with a higher purpose in life. So when karma marga alone is focused, then that's also good. The world needs responsible people. If people are not playing their roles in this world properly, then there can be chaos. So karma marga itself is better than the path of irresponsibility or apathy. At the same time, when we are in this world, we are not just isolated units. Mamaiva Visho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sarata. We are eternal parts of higher reality. And we seek to belong to that higher reality also. So bhakti is karma, but with a higher vision. Like Arjuna was an archer, he was fighting wholeheartedly. He learned archery diligently. But his purpose was to use his archery for the higher purpose of service, for protecting society from people who are antisocial elements, for establishing a virtuous order in society. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this beautiful session. It's aligned a lot of thoughts, internal thoughts of us. I have two questions. First one on our second point of spiritual growth. How important it is, to have a spiritual guru, and how can one find a spiritual guru for our spiritual growth. But before that, this book has been attracting me a lot in the last 1 hour, and I would like, and we all would like to, if you can give us few points, what this book is about and what is there in it, help us grow more.
Sure, thank you. So, let's take the first question. See, in the world, there is, as in there's a higher spiritual reality, you want to connect with it. But there's an invisible reality, but there are also invisible barriers, invisible stumbling blocks for us to cleanse our thoughts, for us to go to a deeper level of reality. So just as we are helped by guides to go on any particular journey. So what the Guru does is, I am here, God is here. But there are invisible walls that separate me from God. So the Guru is not someone who comes between us and God. The Guru breaks what things come between us and God and helps us live good. So the role of a Guru is basically to help us connect with ourselves and connect with our Lord at a deeper, more personal level. And how do we find a Guru? We basically seek to keep learning, keep observing, and whoever inspires us the most on our spiritual journey. The association of a spiritual master of a Guru is meant to inspire us that this is what important, I must do this, I want to do this. So that's the person who will be a Guru. And Guru is not necessarily one. A Guru is anyone who inspires us on the spiritual journey. In the Bhagavad Gita, the word is used in the plural. Jnaninas tattva darshina. Jnani is singular, Jnaninas is plural. So we have many gurus. We may eventually choose one particular guru as our primary guiding person. But the important thing is focus on the guidance. And through the guidance, whatever guidance we get to go higher, from there we will find a value. Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
My question goes back a little bit.
One minute. One car is parked at 66 4834. 4834. Left, right. Thank you.
Yes, my question is a little bit actually entrenched in the corporate world, and I'll ask a strategic as well as the operational question, just building on what I came in late, but I heard. One is, Prabhuji, if you can share a little bit about doing compassionate leadership dispassionately. And I ask this question in the realm of the world that we are navigating today, where there are geopolitical issues that are being just thrusted upon us as people, leaders, etc. And then there is an economy slump, and then of course there is information overload from everywhere. And putting people first vis-a-vis putting profit first, that becomes a constant tug. And as we look at spirituality, and some of us who work in multinational companies, which have different philosophies being guided by, from where they are operating, etc. How do we bring that balance? First within us as people who are navigating, but then also how do we create a sphere of influence through this? And the second question that I have...
Can I complete this? Do you mind?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, very good. So, yes, compassionate leadership dispassionately almost seems impossible. So this was going back to, I was going to make one more point there is, see, if it's considered food, we're going to get food soon, but till then let's think about food. So, there are two situations where I have no food and I am going out searching someone who can give me some food. Maybe I go to a hotel and buy something, I go to the market and get something to eat. The other is that I have so much food that I want to share with others. And I'm looking for someone with whom I'm trying to share it. So in both cases, I'm seeking someone. But I'm coming from a very different place. The activity is the same. I'm looking for someone. But I'm coming from first a place of emptiness, and another is a place of overflowing fullness. So similarly, when we are connected with God, that the God becomes bigger for us, or the spiritual reality becomes bigger for us, then that becomes an anchor, and we come from a place of spiritual fullness. So what I have, this is a rich blessing. I am grateful for what I have. And of course, if I get more, I'll use it more. But what I have, I'm grateful and I want to use it in the mode of service. So, when we are spiritually well connected, then we start, our spiritual connection becomes a source of inner enrichment. We start from a place of inner fullness. Not like we have this whole abundance mentality and scarcity mentality. So now, similarly, we can have this sense of abundance or fullness, or emptiness or scarcity. So our spiritual practices, if we do them, or our meditation, our prayer, our study of sacred texts, then we will find that we will have, if not fullness, at least a sense of richness. There is something inside and of value, and I want to treasure that, I want to hold on to that. From that platform, when we engage with others, now we try to help them, but they accepting our help, and they valuing our help, and they using our help, that does not determine our self-worth. That doesn't determine the whole meaning of our existence. So I have something and I want to share it with others. So unless, so that this passion comes by, that I am not dependent on others doing what I want them to do. Not out of control, even out of compassion. Like somebody will be a doctor and they're treating patients. They will treat patients for free. But then the patients have to follow the procedure. They don't follow the procedures. They don't follow the prescription and prescriptions. The doctor's treatment may not be effective. As a doctor is being compassionate, in say offering free treatment. But the doctor gets too fixated on the patients getting healed. That requires the patient's cooperation. They don't cooperate. And what do you do? So it is one has to come from a place of inner fullness. So we can't fix things. We can't fix people. But we can be a part of a higher reality. So when say we have a doctor, we have a hospital in Mumbai, we do free eye camps here in Barsana also. So in so the doctors, they cataract eye camps, cataract is one of the things which will easily cure, can make a big difference in people's lives. But sometimes people end up, we offer them free treatment, they end up doing something which are harmful to them again. So when Krishna says karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Now, what we put into an endeavor, that is our responsibility. What we get out of it, now that is not what we should focus on. And we feel that's very difficult, but if we are thinking that what I have is a gift, there's a big difference between seeing this is what I am doing and I am working so hard, then it creates a bit of an entitlement mentality. I am entitled to this result. I am doing so much for you. Why am I not reciprocating? And then when things don't work out, we feel very disappointed. So, in the big picture, when I said, I am here and I look at try to serve God. Now, it's not just God will give us some mystical experiences. Often we will find that people do reciprocate. But what happens is, I do a lot for person X and that person neglects me. On the other hand, I do a little for person Y and that person reciprocates so much with me. That person appreciates me so much. So in that big picture, things do balance out. But when this dispassion is not about not caring. Dispassion is more about not controlling. So yes, I can't control whether this person will take what I'm doing or not. But then others will. When I travel and speak, there are some places where people just don't seem to be very interested. Yes, and there are some people who don't seem interested, or sometimes people just don't seem to be understanding. They're looking at me as if they're watching a foreign language movie without subtitles. So, I asked one of my spiritual guides, what should I do where people don't seem to be interested? He said, see it as a training ground for future sessions where people will be interested. The idea is that, yes, sometimes I cannot control, I care that people understand the message, but I can't control how many people will be interested. But if I'm trying to give the message as well as I can, in future I will find some people who are really interested, and then I'll be able to serve them better. So what happens is, for all of us in our lives, there are people who devalue us. And there are people who value us. So now, quite often, much of the frustration in our life comes when we overvalue those who devalue us. There are some people, we spend our life trying to earn their approval or appreciation. It's more likely that there will be a flood in Sahara Desert than they will speak words of praise. It just may not happen. But unfortunately, what happens is, we end up devaluing those who value us. Oh, this person is always there. This person we start devaluing. Now this is what leads to a lot of dissatisfaction. So what we need to realize is, don't overvalue those who devalue us, and don't devalue those who value us. If we learn to value those who value us, we will find in the long run that what we do will be appreciated. And that's how that whole point of we can be compassionate, at the same time be dispassionate. And with respect to the point of people and prophets, the Bhagavad Gita is not an idealistic book. It says, Sarvarambhahi doshena dhumenagnirbhavita. That every endeavor is covered by faults. That means, whatever action we do, we will have to take some hard decisions. And I say, in corporate life, you have to fire people. Arjuna literally had to fire at people. So, and not only fire at people, he had to fire at his own grandfather and his guru, his teacher. It's very difficult for him. But Krishna said that, you are by nature a warrior. You may feel, I don't want to fight this war. But if in the name of not fighting this war, you stop being a warrior, then you will end up being far more miserable. Because Warrior doesn't mean they love to fight. Warrior means they want to protect. So fighting is for protecting them. Like we have the Guardians of the Galaxy. So we have something like so. The Kshatriyas are meant to be guardians of society. So you may say, okay, I don't mind if these people mistreat me. I will tolerate it. You are a protector, and tomorrow, when those opponents, those who are trying to dishonor your wife, you will let them, you will forgive them for that. But if they start doing it to innocent people, and you hear about it, you will not be able to live with yourself. So sometimes, when we have to take those hard decisions, we need to keep the bigger picture in mind. Yes, maybe at this particular time, profits need to be prioritized so that this whole endeavor stays alive. And then we can care for people. So the profit should not be seen as a dirty word. It's like artha is also part of life. But at the same time, again, when profits become the only purpose, that's when that artha becomes anartha. So we have to be realistic. And realistic means the readiness to not only accept unpalatable realities, but also ourselves make choices that we may not want to make. Thank you. I don't want to go over. How much time do we have?
We can take 10 minutes more.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
You see, like in case of children, like Manji was asking yesterday.
Okay, sorry, you had one more question? You had asked both?
No, but that.
Okay, sure. Okay.
So like in case of children, especially like parents are especially worried that they are able to bring their children to perfect, not perfect, at least good enough, and they have their own individuality, and they have their own their expositions, like Manji was telling. So again, this kind of dispassionality or doing things like we are doing our best, but again, sometimes that overpowers our own caring for our children. We overpower their individuality or something, and instead of maybe helping them at a particular pace which they are able to grow, we may push them a little bit. So how exactly we can basically see ourselves balancing things out there?
Okay. So, parenting is something which I have not done. That's why I'm very good at giving advice. So, I will focus not so much on parenting per se, but I'll focus more on the principle of guiding. And then as parents, you can decide which of it applies. See, basically, I'll talk about two different levels at this. One is in terms of worldview. How do we think of children? Now, you can think of a child as clay. Like clay can be shaped and molded, whichever you want. And often we say that children's minds are like clays, and you want to shape them. Now, there is some truth to that, but a different worldview is children are like seeds. Now, seeds means that you cannot shape a mango seed into an apple fruit. So, are children like seeds or are children like clay? And these two itself will lead to very different approaches to parenting. So, broadly speaking, the Gita's worldview falls more on the side of children being like seeds. They're not like clay. It's not that we can mold them into anything that we want. What is because we molding them into anything that we want, even they can't mold themselves into anything they want. Like some children may say, okay, I want to become, say in America, I want to become a basketball player. But if they are 4.5 feet tall, unless they start a separate basketball league for vertically challenged people, they are really not going to be so successful. So the idea that we are like clay and we can mold ourselves or anyone else, that is not a very healthy way of looking at things. Now let's be realistic. Now if you consider it to be seeds, then that means there are certain giving talents that are already there. Now, everything is not given, but parenting is more like gardening. Gardening means that this particular stuff, now every seed requires certain things which are common. So gardening, there are some general principles which are universal, but there are also some principles that are specific. Okay, this particular seed may require this temperature, it may require this kind of soil. Specifics are also there. But so parenting is more like gardening or cultivating a seed. That's why at one level, there has to be, to some extent, there's some universal practices. That all parents need to teach children certain boundaries. Now, one of the most important words that a child growing up needs to hear is no. You say, that's so unloving. Well, not really. Imagine, say, there are two siblings, and one sibling is eating food, both are eating food, and one spoon gets over the plate. The sibling grabs food from the other plate and eats it. He says, no, don't take from her plate or his plate. You want more, I'll give more to you. You say, what's the big deal? It's all in the family only. Okay, maybe this kid is 5 years old. Fast forward 25 years, and this kid is in a corporate dinner. They grab food from somebody else's plate. So, one of the important, maybe not very pleasant parts of parenting is teaching children boundaries. The importance of boundaries. So, saying no is not so much of depriving them, but as teaching them the importance of boundaries. So, the universal principle practices could be about boundaries. That is something which is required. Now, of course, the specific boundaries may vary for different children, but the principle of boundaries is non-negotiable. Then after that, there are specific practices. Now, for this, it's not so much the parents teach the children to learn, but the parents also learn about the children. You know, what is this child good at? What is this child happy doing? The Gita talks about guna and karma. Now, this word guna and karma can be understood in different ways, but one way to understand it is that when we have the guna for something, we feel content doing it. We feel, oh, say a child will just be very happy doing the art. If you content, and if you have the karma for doing something, we have competence in doing it. So we can look at what are the things that my child is happy doing. And the child will say, I'm happy playing with toys. I'm happy playing video games or watching TV. Not that kind of happiness, but something more meaningful. The child is content doing. What is the child competent in doing? So observing our children is an important part of actually guiding the children. So if you consider them to be seeds, like we have got a seed and we have to discover which seed it is. The seed doesn't come with a convenient label. So in that sense, parenting is also about learning, it's not just about teaching. So that's one aspect of it. So this requires observation. The child observes, we train the child to also observe. You know, what all are you good at? What all do you feel good doing? Again, feel good is not a cheap, immediate gratificatory sense, but in a deeper sense. And then, as the children grow up, see with respect to boundaries, so this part will require observation. We observe and we help the child also to observe. And then now this part about boundaries. When the child is young, the child is very small, the parents can impose boundaries. You cannot go out of the home. You want to play over here only. So at that time the boundaries are much easier to impose. As the child grows up, then the boundaries become more and more difficult to impose. But that doesn't mean boundaries are not required. So what we need to do at that time is, see, when we're talking about boundaries, there could be instruction, do this and don't do this. You could give instruction or you could give vision. Vision means, if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. Now for very small kids, At that time, we just have to give instructions. The intelligence may not be developed enough to give them vision. But as they start growing, we need to start giving them vision. Like the whole Gita, although Krishna is God, Krishna doesn't give too many instructions in the Gita. There are few words which are instructions, but most of the Gita is giving vision. If you do this will happen. If you do this will happen. And then, now to decide what you want to do. Now with respect to vision, what does it mean? That there is, when I talk about me, there is the present me. And there is the potential me. Or this is with a child. There is a present child and there is the potential child. So, in Indian parenting, actually American parenting or Western parenting, there's some difference, significant difference. So, one aspect, I saw one cartoon where one friend showed me what they have this Chinese parenting also, it's quite disciplinarian. They say tiger moms, they call it. So, there is this kid who is telling the mother, no, mom, I think you don't love me. You only love a future version of me. So now, what happens is that there is the present me and there is the future. So rather than talking about or the potential me, we can say, as parents, we can see the potential in our children. At the same time, we may want to see the potential, we want them to develop the potential. But what happens is, if we care only for the potential me, then the present me feels suffocation. It's like, study and do this course and go to the extracurricular activities. I have no space for myself, if you like that. But on the other hand, if they care, the child may care only for the present me, then that will lead to stagnation.
Should be the other way.
Many pieces.
No, you care only for the present me, or only for the potential.
Prabhuji, if I may interrupt, what you're saying makes me, thank that I went for work when the children are growing.
Makes you sad.
No. Makes me feel that good that I
Glad,
went for
okay.
work when they were growing. Otherwise, I would have been a tiger mom. 24 hours.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes, see what happens is, when children are very small, they need their mother constantly. As they grow older, we may get used to feeling needed. And then what happens is, we have a need to be needed. And when the children start not accepting our presence, our guidance, it's not just they are not listening to me, it's like I feel I am not valued. And then it becomes much more problematic. So, how to balance, say, the traditional gender roles and traditional family structures, and we are all going in a different place right now. So exactly different cultural place, different psychological space. So parents, children do need their parents, no doubt. But exactly when will it become intrusive? When will it become helpful? That has to be carefully seen. So that's the point I was coming to. That there is to be caring for the present me and there is caring for the potential me also. Now how much to care for what? For both there has to be negotiation. So rather than telling the child, you have to obey me, try to help the child itself see that there is a future you want to enjoy right now. But let the enjoyment that you want right now not be at the cost of your future. That the present me and the future me. In one sense, the future me is not yet manifested, but it's me. So the present me should not be taking things from the future. At the same time, the future me should not be taking everything from the present me also. It's like that. So when we help our child to see that there is a future, and this is a negotiation that ultimately you have to do with yourself. So initially, it's like somebody in a company, they're in the executive role. They're doing the things. They're getting things done. But then some management changes and they put in an advisory role. very difficult. You give advice and people don't accept your advice. So parenting is like that. In the first few years, we are in the executive role. But by the time, there is no formal change of role given to us. Suddenly we find that we got to the advisory role. So, but the thing is, if while the child is growing up, we try to help that child understand that this is, I am helping you make this decision now, but this is the decision making skill that you need to develop. The negotiation between the present me and the potential. Then what will happen is each child will grow up developing that. So that development may take time, and each child is different. See, some, like even as adults, some people work better in a highly structured work environment. Some people require a much more unstructured work environment. You know, it is that you give me this deadline, in 1 month you want this product, I'll give it to you. Don't ask me every moment, every hour, what did I do, what did I do, what did I do. Some people like, I come to the office at this time, this much hour I work, and then, so it depends. So like that children also, where they will fall. You cannot be completely at the present piece and completely at the potential side. But children go through different phases. So sometimes they may focus more on the present piece. But later on they'll learn. And they'll focus, appreciate the potential neons. This American thinker Mark Twain, he said, when I was 17, my father was a fool. Now I'm 25, I'm amazed how much the old guy has learned in the last 8 years. So, at 25, we also become more mature. So, maybe the teens, they will focus a little bit more presently and we need to give them a little space for that. Not complete space, but so I think this, the idea of telling them that discipline is not something which I am imposing on you. Discipline is your own negotiation between your present me and your future me, or your potential me. And that is something which will help them take the initiative and make good decisions also when we are not there to guide them. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.